So this is my 1962 Austin Gipsy. It is a G2M10. It's the second series of Gypsy that they built. They built a G1, a G2, and a G4. They skipped over G3 for some reason. Not sure why. This Gypsy has the four-wheel independent suspension, riding on Flexitor torsional rubber bushings. I'll do a video on the suspension sometime too, just to show people what it's all about. It's quite a unique setup. Rides really nice. Rides a lot like a coil spring vehicle. This time when I restored it, this is actually the second time I've restored this. I've owned it for 27 years, and I restored it about 20 years ago when I did a lot of rust repair on it. I replaced the door sills and the bottom of the windshield frame and the front inner fenders and the body mounts. I did a whole lot of work, and then I drove it for about 20 some odd years, probably 24, and it was getting rusty again. It was getting little spots further up from where I'd repaired it before. This time I enclosed the back of the box. The back on the G1 and G2 is open like the tailgate is, and there's little spots in here where water, I've sealed them up on here, but say like this, where moisture can get in there and it sits in behind and it rusts out in all the low spots. So on the G4 they actually put a cover on here that screws on just to make it look more finished. And this time I welded tin right over top. My goal to seal out the moisture. I also capped off the holes for the canvas top where they put the hoops in, because I don't have a canvas top, and this actually has a pickup cab, so this is exposed to the weather all the time. The only place where water can get in now is in these side compartments, and I'll put seals on those to try and keep the water out. This time I had to replace the bottoms of these boxes. They had rusted out, so I've sealed them up, and I've coated the box with rocker coating. It's a anti-chip coating. The paint still comes off it, but it leaves it's like rhino coat or a box liner. I intend to use this Gypsy as a daily driver again, so I made it to be durable. This paint is Fiat Mocha Latte. I couldn't get the paint custom matched again because during COVID everybody was shut down, and nobody would mix me any paint, so I'd had the paint matched before using a piece of the dash that had never been exposed to the sun, and I was lucky enough to have somebody that was really good at matching paint, and they matched it perfectly to the original color. And this color is pretty darn close. It's lighter, but it's a nice color, and I'm not worried about concours, show car stuff. This is just a vehicle I want to drive and enjoy. So here's a look at the engine. It's a 2.2 petrol, gasoline powered BMC engine. They had a really low compression ratio, about 6.8 to 1, to run on poor grade gas. These were designed to be shipped all over the world, and in different parts of the world you might run into crummy old gas, so these could eat just about anything. They have 62 horsepower and 110 foot-pounds of torque. The Gypsy had some cool little features under the hood. On my G4 I showed how you can crank start it from the front, and this one also had that, but I've got the PTO winch pulley on the front right now, so I can't show you that. But on the fuel pump, they have a priming lever, which usually you see on diesels. I suppose if you were ever in the situation where your battery was dead and you couldn't crank this thing over, you could prime it with the gas fuel pump there by hand and then crank start it. I'm guessing that's the idea behind that, as long as you had enough power to create a spark. It's got single reservoir master cylinder on the brakes, hydraulic clutch. This radiator is original. These rads are just bulletproof. They're solid copper and brass, and they just never fail. I cleaned it, and I actually had to get this fan cover soldered on, but other than that, it's still the original rad. Another cool little feature under here on the starter, there's a button which is handy for if you're working under the hood and you're setting the valves. You can use that to bump the engine over, and I suppose it's a feature if you ever lost your starter switch or the solenoid stopped working, you could just reach down there and crank it with that button too. So that's a kind of a cool little feature as well. This still has the generator on it and Lucas regulator. All works great. I rebuilt the generator while I was at it, rebuilt the motor. I've had hardened seats put in so it would run on unleaded fuel. The original seats were actually in really good shape still too, so they must have just been made of really good material, because I ran this thing on unleaded gasoline for 20 years and it never pounded the valves out. Another look at the Flexiter suspension. I'm running 750/16s on this. The stock sizes were 600 and 650/16. Those sizes are pretty hard to get, and a 750/16 is just a little larger diameter. It helps out a little bit on the highway because these have 5:12:1 gear ratio in the differentials, so they're pretty slow on the highway, and it's not like I'm trying to go real fast, but you got to try and stay out of the way of everybody these days on the road. They get impatient driving behind you if you're only doing 40-50 miles an hour on the parkway. Inside, it has a push button start on the dash to start. Signal light switch is different. The G4, you'll see in the video, has a timer. This one's just mechanical. It's up to you to remember to turn the switch off after you turn. Fan starter, dash lights, choke. This one has the optional fuel temp gauge. 2 high, 4 low, 4 high, and neutral for PTO. The G2 has the fresh air vents down on the kick panels like the G4. But instead of the air coming through the side, it comes through these fresh air vents at the front, so it kind of crams the air in there pretty good when you're driving on the highway. And there's a duct that runs up all along inside the fender, straight down to the kick panel. The brakes are 10-inch drum. Stops well. These things only weigh about 2,400 pounds, if I recall offhand. The G2 came with door handles. The G1 originally, over the first 2 years, didn't have an external door handle. They added this in 1960. On the inside there's just a pull chain. On the G4 they actually put a handle on there and a nice little cushy armrest there for you too. So windshield wipers are Lucas. You just put them into position and flip it on. You can run the left or the right. So yeah, I'll shut the hood and we'll go for a little drive. First gear is 4-to-1 ratio. It's geared pretty low in the first gear. It's a non-synchro. The other three are synchronized. You don't have to start off in first gear, but it's good on steeper hills and that. This thing rides pretty smooth. I'll show you on my little demo course here where they got our road dug up. Quite a bit quieter than the Gypsy with the canvas top. Nothing to rattle around. Gypsy has 62 horsepower, 110 foot-pounds of torque. The G4 model has 72 horsepower, so it's got a little more power. Pulls up this hill a little better. That's the choke right there. Playing around with it a little bit because it's still cold.
I like it.
Thanks. This thing gets a lot of attention around town, I guess because it's pretty unusual nowadays. I've had it so long, it just feels normal to me, and sometimes when people are waving or giving me a thumbs up, I wonder what they're looking at, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's the Gypsy. But yeah, I put a lot of miles on this spring and summer. We get out for a drive every night or every second night. I've probably put about 1,500 miles on it. It's running good, driving nice. Great in this weather, and like I was saying, with the top off, they're really quiet inside. When you put the hard top on, this one has a pickup cab on it, and when you put the top on it, it kind of holds all the sound in here and it kind of echoes around. And this time around I'm going to put some sound dampening, like that foam covering on the inside of the cab. Put it in a lot of machines. I used to put it in loaders and excavators to keep the sound down. It's really good sound damper. So that's what the Gypsy's going to get this time around. here is really nice and tight. I've seen videos of these where people are complaining about how they wander, but if your Gypsy wanders, you got loose parts. Show you how that e-brake works. Before, when you pulled it on, it would never lock up the back wheels. So I'm pretty happy with that. And yeah, that's my Austin Gipsy G2M10. Thank you for watching.